everybody, and welcome to Codename Goodgame, the show that we're going to shoot the crap for whatever the phrase is, talk about the world of games this week, and have a friendly good game at the end of it. And this is the very first one. And because of that, I admit I'm a little bit nervous. But, you know, the first person I have ever had on this show, and the first person I've ever collabed with, is actually one and the same, being my good old pal, Josh from Quest Mode. Sir, welcome to Codename Goodgame. How's it going?
It is going great. Thanks for having me. It's been a while since I have gotten to talk video games with you, let alone anyone out in the YouTube sphere. So this is going to be a lot of fun for me. I'm very excited to be here and very honored to be your first guest on this show. That's really awesome. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yes. And, you know, you're probably going to see Josh and I a good deal because not only is he the person that I first collabed with, the most collabed with, but he's somebody that, you know, we met up before this. And obviously I don't want to take up his time every week, but I guarantee you'll see him again. And also, just a fun fact, if you want more info on him, do !guest in the chat. And fun fact, I figured this out before the stream. Nightbot's a part of it. Hell, I'll even test it out right now. Guest. And then Nightbot may or may not show up in the first couple minutes here. It takes a few minutes, but 5 minutes after, it should give you all the info. But you could go to the description if you want more info on Josh. Yep, it's working. I see it. Fantastic. But yeah, Josh, this is our first episode of Codename Goodgame.
It's exciting.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's as you already just said. We're going to just basically be able to talk about the world of games. We're not going to have every known nook and cranny of things out there. We have the Tokyo Game Show this week. There was a day that a Nintendo Direct and a State of Play happened in the same day somehow. So, I don't know. You know what? On a general note first, Josh, how did that feel getting a State of Play and a Nintendo Direct on the same day when, you saw that? Because I thought, what reality are we living in?
It was as the phrase goes, a roller coaster of emotions. Because
yes.
You know that's great news. I think for any gamer to see that there's either a Nintendo Direct or a State of Play announced. Nowadays, they've both gotten in the habit of announcing them very close to when they actually show them. So it's cool. It's like, oh, wow, we get a Nintendo Direct tomorrow. That's great. Or maybe that was a 48-hour window they gave us. But then we're like, oh, we're also getting a State of Play. So we get really excited. Like, man, we're going to get a lot of stuff tomorrow. But as with, I think, a lot of gamers, you know, I probably let my expectations get a little out of whack. You know,
we all do.
This time especially because we've gone a long time without a Nintendo Direct. And it was a 40-minute Direct, and they did pack it. And we'll get into the details of it. But then with the State of Play, it's a little different because I think a lot of people...
They definitely didn't crop that Direct.
Oh, no. What crop? No. That one went right over my head.
There was a lot of farming in that game, and they were growing a lot of crops, but they definitely didn't crop that Direct.
Yeah, that was kind of
stupid. I'm sorry. Keep going.
That was the meme of the show afterwards. Was definitely all the crops, the farming, and whatnot. So, but then with the State of Play, I think maybe I'm wrong here, but I think a lot of people were hoping for a proper PlayStation showcase, and you know, I'm sure everyone in the chat is familiar, but you know, there's a big difference between a PlayStation showcase and a State of Play.
Yeah.
So, nonetheless, we didn't get that, but we did get 2 showcases in one day, which is nothing to complain about. I feel like even if they didn't meet my expectations, I still should be happy and grateful that we got that all in one day. It was a lot of fun. But some expectations were a little bit out of check for me, admittedly so.
Yeah. But, I don't know. To me, that was just kind of a wild thing. And again, we're going to talk about that as well as if we were just talking about this before the show started. We're not aware of everything that was announced at the Tokyo Game Show. This is just an opportunity for us to talk with each other and potentially support and chat and everything. But yeah, when I first saw the State of Play and Direct, they literally brought this up the second I came back from travel, which was crazy.
Wow.
Yeah,
but that's you got thrown to the wolves right away,
dude. The second that my friend said that, the second you get back, all this stuff starts happening. I'm like, dude, 343 shakeup, a Nintendo Direct, and a State of Play. What is happening the first day I'm back?
And then TGS happened. I mean, I heard someone out there say, like, apparently September is the new E3, which maybe it is, but I don't know if it's something we'll get.
But anyways, just a really quick thing. Chad, if you're here, feel free to say hi. I do see there is Steffi, Nike, Hannah, Philexis. Guys, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate you. And we are going to be focusing on the show. We will be glancing at the chat now and then. But towards the end, we are going to... Here's how the show's going to work, just to lay it all out. I have a kind of for funsy question for Josh and me that I have 2 patrons that sent in. And I think that's good because you get to know us a bit. And then we're going to talk about the State of Play, the Nintendo Direct, anything that stuck out to us in Tokyo Game Show. If there's time, we have other topics that maybe we'll hit too. PSVR 2, the 343 shakeup, mom and dad fighting over Acti Blitz. And then towards the end, if any new big messages come in, you can @ us or donation, super chats, and then we're going to play a friendly game of Codename Goodgame. Because I guess I should mention really quick to introduce us, the point of this show, because it is our first episode, is to encourage a good game. Why do people say good game? It's because they're a good sport. We're not trying to spread, I'm going to call it tribalism, even though tribalism isn't a bad term, but some people, they just can't help but wave the flag kind of a thing on certain things and hitting people hard, trash talking. Like, I don't want that here. That's fine if other folks do it, but we are just celebrating the world of games this week. We're reflecting on past games, talking about their potential future, and then seeing if we can figure out what one is towards the end, which we'll have more games than just 20 questions, but we're going to play that towards the end, where Josh here is going to guess a game that you sent in. But, Josh, I do have a quote here that I need to pull up as I multitask.
No problem.
And I don't know if there's... Yeah, if you have a comment on that, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, we may not have it lined up for today, but, man, like, a healthy... Like, what a healthy take on the console wars might sound or look like would be a great topic for this show. Like, I have a lot to say on that, and I've been messing around with for any viewers who don't know me, I'm traditionally a PlayStation-centric gamer, but I have been exploring a lot of Xbox stuff lately, and so I think that's just a really fascinating topic with how different those, like, the Xbox and the PlayStation ecosystem have become. They both offer a lot for different people. So,
yeah, and that's kind of, because that's the thing. I don't want this to just be a news show. I want this to be able to be a show we can talk about things that are a bit more, I don't want to say bigger picture, but they're not as timely kind of a thing. And because a lot of the times you'll catch stuff on the show that I don't cover on the channel or whatever. But we'll talk about it here. And so, yeah, console wars, that is like an entire show in itself. Who knows? Maybe if there's like a dry week, we could do that. Like, that'd be awesome. Like,
well, we'll get into it a little bit. If we end up talking about the Activision Blizzard thing today, we'll get into that a little bit.
If we talk about mom and dad fighting, we will.
They're like literally going at each other. So it's
literally, we've never seen anything like this. But I do have, so there are some patrons that I want to shout out, being Capone and Steffi. They are top tier patrons, and I wanted to see some peeps send in stuff that was just for funsies, like get to know the two guests or get to know the guests and myself. And it's funny, the questions actually are very similar to each other, because the first one is from Capone, and he's like, top 5 worlds you would live at, or top 5 worlds you would never want to live at. But I thought this is funny because Steffi, she asked, if you had to live in a video game universe for the rest of your life, which one would you choose? So that was kind of funny that they both somewhat had the same question. They were both asking. They both asked at least, what's a world that you would want to live in? Capone just added like a not want to live in. So I hope they don't mind if I shrink this down to, what is a world that we would want to live in, and what is a world we would not want to live in the world of games? Do you have an idea, Josh, or do you want me to go?
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind, and it's tough because at most video game worlds, the thing that world wants most is to kill you. So that kind of
Yes.
takes me out of a lot of them. But I recently played a game called Tinykin, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, and
I want to get to it.
fantastic game. But it takes place in like a post-apocalyptic a house that it's a post-apocalyptic world, but the world ended in the 90s, like the early 90s. So you're in this house and time is frozen in like 1992 or 93, maybe 94 at the latest. And that's an era of my life that I'm just not fascinated. I just have a lot of fondness for those years.
Interesting.
And so that, I don't know if that game necessarily, because it is kind of post-apocalyptic and it's kind of very lonely, but any game that takes place in that era, Gone Home would be another one that takes place in that era. It got me really nostalgic for that. So right now, that's where my mind goes. But if I was to be in a video game world, if I could pick any one, even though it's really dark and a lot of horrible stuff happens in these games,
Don't you dare.
well, it's still it's still kind of like a cartoony, fantastical world. It would be maybe the Arkham series. Like to be
I thought
in
for a split second, I'm like, don't you dare say FromSoft. Any FromSoft game, don't you
hell no.
dare.
The only good thing about a FromSoft game is, well, just like any video game, when you do die, you just get reincarnated like
Fair,
instantly.
yeah.
So you come back to life. But no, I just think it would be fun to live. I was going to say Spider-Man because that's a comic book world that's more brighter and not as dark and not as just dark. But it's New York City. I've been to New York. I don't want to go to a place I've been. Gotham City would be awesome to spend some time in. The rest of my life, I'm not sure. But anyway, those are some answers that come to mind. I also think Breath of the Wild would be a great universe to explore and be part of. Like that version of Hyrule is just amazing.
Yeah.
So those are some answers that come to my mind.
So here, I'll go in terms of like world I would want to live in most. I've said this before on my streams, I think, and if there's any world I would want to, if I was stuck in there, if I was isekai'd, and maybe people know what that means, I just feel like there's no threatening situation being in the world of Pokemon. Like, and there's all these different creatures that you could like you could catch a freaking dragon type and just fly around with it, or sail on waters with I think it's like a Lapras or a Gyarados or whatever. And like, I'm not a Pokemon fan, but I admit, like, living in that world and trying to figure out how, whatever my profession, whether I'm a trainer or something else, I don't feel in danger in that world. And it'd be cool because like of all the different kinds of Pokemon you can have, whereas in our world it's like get a cat or a dog or something. I want that kind of a thing. So that'd probably be my answer.
That's a good one too, because like a lot of RPGs, it has the side of it actually has like the life part of life. So if you were to be in that world, like there are towns in Pokemon, you could make friends, like human friends in Pokemon. You could probably get a job and all that stuff, so that's any RPG for that reason. Like, I guess like maybe JRPG is more what I'm going at. Yeah. A lot of them have that element to them.
And my least, I mean, we could list a lot of least.
Yeah.
I just, I haven't given this question much thought, but just if I had a gun to my head, I think it's just because it's recent. I adore Elden Ring as a game, but God, would I hate to be in that world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like terrifying. There's literally just things hung everywhere, very gothic creatures, and just I feel like it's so massive. I don't know what any place is safe. No, I would never want to be in the world of Elden Ring. No.
It's even as a video game. I mean, I clocked a lot of hours into Elden Ring. Don't get me wrong, but those games, all FromSoft games, gameplay-wise, are some of the best games I've ever played. But the worlds are not the place. Even in a video game, they're not the worlds I would choose to go if I could choose to go to any world. The only reason I play FromSoft games, I shouldn't say the only reason, but the biggest reason is for the gameplay. The world, they're just so grim. I'm like, can somebody make a Souls-like that doesn't look like a.
I was joking about that with a friend. I'm like, what if they made an E-rated game?
Yeah, well, have you seen? There's a preview for a game. I don't want to get too sidetracked here, but there was a preview for a game on one of these showcases a while back for an indie game that is it's basically like completely cartoony, but it's a Souls-like. It's and you play as a crab, I think.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I'm like, thank you. Someone's making a Souls-like that is actually like
yes.
cute and fun and colorful. I'd love more of that.
Yeah. So those are our answers. And there is some people in the chat answering. Sephi said nice answer, so she's here. Perfect. And Nike's like, I would live in Mario World. You get extra lives, which the Mario World is actually almost any Nintendo game, you're good. Kind of a thing.
Yeah. The Mushroom Kingdom. Yeah, that'd be a good one.
And Hannah said Stardew Valley. Stardew Valley, that'd be a very chill time, I admit.
Yeah, that's another one where, like, if you want to go somewhere where you get kind of some of the trappings of normal life with maybe out all of the stress, Stardew Valley would be a great one.
Yeah. Okay, but so those are some questions to get to know us. You might get to know us more in other shows. But I do want to get to some of the things that have happened this week. Again, if you're not into the news, I want to phrase these in ways that it could almost be approachable for anybody. There's one in particular. If we get to it, I was telling Josh I have a great way of phrasing this that anybody can approach this. So yeah, we're just gonna breeze by some stuff that stood out to us this week, but especially from the shows this week. So this is... Oh, I actually had a segue to this because I made a graphic for it. Let's load in some news and topics from the week. Okay, so the first thing that obviously we're talking about before, the main highlight of this is the Nintendo Direct and State of Play, which is going to be a big highlight, but... Okay, you know what? I'm deciding right here now. I was gonna say, maybe we'll get to it if there's time, but no, we'll save it for later. This is the beauty of the show being live. But before the State of Play and the Nintendo Direct, which I really do think happened because the Tokyo Game Show was happening this week.
Yeah.
Let's maybe get that out of the way first, Josh. So if you don't know, the Tokyo Game Show is going on this week. I see some people in my community, they're like, hey, there's a Genshin Impact anime. I don't know if you knew that, but that's happening.
Yeah.
There was, I don't know, a new Yakuza game, a new Sonic trailer. There was some stuff. So, and that is just basically like Tokyo's sort of E3, just highlighting their developers or partners from around the world. There was an Xbox show. There was some things that happened, but we don't know everything. Capcom had a show. Konami had a show. Don't watch the Konami show. It's kind of lame. But Josh, right off the bat, is there anything that kind of stood out to you? Because I have some things that maybe bring up, but is there anything of the Tokyo Game Show that stood out to you?
Definitely. The biggest one is that, and this has been happening, I think, for a few years now, but just that Xbox is there and making it very known that they are committed to Japan, which I think is awesome. I listened to the opening. I didn't watch the full Xbox showcase. It was kind of long, but I listened to Phil Spencer's opening, and I realize he is, he's there to speak for Xbox. He's not he's very good at coming off as our friend, but he is still there to sell video games and whatnot. But I really take him at his word that he's there to, really grow the Xbox presence in Japan. I think they're doing a good job of that. So to see them at TGS in the way that they are, that they're really Phil Spencer goes to Japan. At least I think he did. Maybe he didn't.
He did. Yeah, there's a picture of him hanging out with Kojima. So they're not half-assing it with their Japanese showcase, and so that's cool. Now the announcements that came out of that interested me was more just some of the Game Pass announcements, and I think that's where they announced that Deathloop was finally coming over to Game Pass, and with the new additions to Deathloop, I actually I love that game. I kind of want to jump back in and play through that campaign all over again. Fun fact, I haven't gotten to it yet.
Dude, Deathloop,
for this exact reason though. I was like, it's gonna be on Game Pass next year. I've already waited this long. I might as well.
I would highly recommend it. It's not Arcane's best game in my opinion, but it is their most interesting. You have not played anything like Deathloop. I guarantee it. It's it's mind bending how that game was put together. I don't know how they did it, but it's really cool. Check it out.
That's what I love to hear. Like, that's a great way to sell it because, yeah. And that was the thing. Like, so to comment off of just that, so the Xbox, I'm not going to say showcase. I don't know. Just Xbox TGS presentation, I think is what they titled it. But I did watch the whole thing, and I think it was actually a part of like the first day of the Tokyo Game Show. So that was a cool way to kind of probably kick off their booth or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it especially was good to get announcements for Game Pass, which a lot of people tend to see as maybe not. I just see some folks that are just like, Xbox needs to do more than just Game Pass. And I'm like, the problem is that Xbox is Game Pass now. Like it or not, that's what they are. And there was some cool stuff. The Blaze Blue game and another one from that studio. I just hung out with a friend last night, and he's like, that's kind of a big deal. But he's also into fighting games. And the Ni no Kuni ports but what you were saying, you know, they're making an effort to show up in Japan. And again, we're just saying this as people commentating on it off it. We don't want to wave no flags, but it's a neat thing. It's a neat thing to see Xbox trying to hit that market that they have struggled with for so long. And I think this is the generation that they are finally, I think this is the biggest generation that they have sold Xboxes in Japan. I could be wrong about that, but
yeah, they've already outsold the Xbox One
for sure.
I think
for
by
sure,
quite a wide margin over there. And there's been a few months where I am pretty sure from at least the podcast that I've listened to, I've heard that there have been a few months where Xbox has outsold PlayStation in Japan.
Some months,
which is crazy if you think about how they've done in the past.
Yeah. But in terms of trailers, so I'll kick one off here, and I know if Nike Boy's still here in the live chat, then he'll notice this. There was a new Sonic trailer.
Yeah.
And there's a mechanic to it that, and I'm going to see if I can load up this trailer because I had like B-roll for this, but there was a mechanic to it that really made it seem like Sonic goes Supersonic is a regular thing in this game. Like, Supersonic is a mechanic, which is really interesting to hear. Like, they said that in an interview or something, that Supersonic, you're not going to be able to take on certain enemies without that mode. And that was really interesting to hear, because I'm not a Sonic fan. I've just played a couple of the games, mostly back in the day. But I've always associated, and I'm curious, Josh, if you could correct me here, but I've always associated that mode with like the final boss or something. So to hear it's a mechanic is kind of interesting. But if you saw this trailer, did anything about it stand out to you? And what do you think about that being an actual mechanic now?
I actually haven't watched the full trailer. I should look it up, but I did see clips of it. And to me, what struck me is, compared to the previous footage of Sonic, the game looks the world looks more filled out now. And I don't have as many concerns that you're just going to be running around a big empty, like, grassy knoll, you know, with random stuff in the sky, which could have some fun stuff to do. But the gameplay that I saw now, it just looked more rich, more filled out, and made me more excited to play this game. I recently tried Sonic Colors, which I actually thought was pretty good. I didn't play a lot of it, but I thought it was pretty fun. Just to see, is there a 3D Sonic game that I might think is actually good? That one, I might actually play more of it. So that got me excited about this. Then I saw this trailer, or at least the clips of it that I've watched. But I don't know exactly about like the supersonic mode. I'm looking at the B-roll you're showing right now.
Yeah, and it's like 10 or so seconds behind. But it's just interesting to hear, like, because I know he's like fighting a big boss in this trailer, and then he does transform to the mode, and he's using the Chaos Emeralds. But I'm just very curious to hear if that is truly a mechanic in the game. Is that something that only happens with bosses or whatever? But
I don't know. And in the last Sonic game that I played to completion was Sonic 2, and that's literally back when it came out, so we're talking decades ago. Yeah. But for those who don't know, I'm old. And I tried Sonic Mania because everyone loved it, and I found out that game, like the Sonic gameplay that I remember, is not as fun for me as I hoped it would be when I played Sonic Mania. And again, and Sonic Adventure, never played any of those games to completion because I just couldn't get through them. So Sonic is a franchise that I, more than maybe any other, I want it to be good, because the idea of a Sonic game that you're running through these levels super fast, you're basically on like a roller coaster that you can run through and explore, sounds awesome. But for me, it's just never managed to reach what I have in my imagination for what a Sonic game could be. And my hope is that that's what Sonic Frontiers can be. It's funny you're showing this B-roll, and like I don't know where the clips were that I saw this like really rich environment that seemed kind of dense, because I'm not seeing it in this.
It's the levels. It's the levels I think you're talking about, because there's kind of like an open zone portion of the game, and then there's the actual like traditional Sonic levels in between. So, and those are the areas that are really dense, and I have a feeling traditional Sonic players will probably have the most fun at. But I don't know. I'm with you. I hope Sonic's good. And I don't know, we're talking a lot about Sonic, but just if there's anything else from the Tokyo Game Show that stood out to me so far, it is actually, okay, believe it or not, I'm not a fighting game guy, but I have to tell you, Street Fighter 6 is looking pretty freaking awesome. They're showing that off a lot, and I don't know, again, I'm not into fighting games, but everything I am seeing for Street Fighter 6 is, I just like how it is becoming not an open world, but they're doing more to make the game cool. Like having more to do in it, having a progression system, and then even the style of, it's not like super duper high graphics like maybe Tekken 8 was, but it's something about it. It's just grabbing me. This is like the first Street Fighter game that's kind of grabbing me. But
I will say, the kind of open world-ish stuff, what I'm assuming is probably more single-player focused gameplay. I could be wrong about that, but I think that it's cool that fighting games, I think that Mortal Kombat and Injustice really led the way on creating single-player campaigns that can hold a player's attention. Like me, I'm not going to stick, or at least I haven't in the past stuck with any of those games to the point where I like actually get good at them. But I love the campaign in Mortal Kombat 11. It's awesome. It's one of the like highlights of that year for me, as far as video games go. And so I'm glad to see that Street Fighter seems to be taking a cue. I don't think the story mode is going to be anything like what they did in Mortal Kombat, but what I mean by that is they're sorry, my phone just went off.
Okay.
But the fact that they're putting a focus on more than just like back in the day, and actually not even that long ago, what you would do in a fighting game if you wanted to play through it single player, you would just fight one match after another until you get to the final boss, and then you're done. So that they're adding something like an open world where you get to explore, develop your own character, that's really awesome.
Yeah. And there's something about the personality of these characters too. Like that's something that's always drawn me to a fighting game, is if I feel like the characters don't just have good designs, but they have their personality bleeding out. And I think that's something that they, like, even on the stream right now, they're showcasing the actual characters in the game, and they look great. But if I'm honest, I think the stand-up for me in terms of mainstream stuff was Street Fighter 6. But and this is the part where I sound a little bit pathetic, but I don't know of anything else that really stood out to me. So, well, I don't know if you got one, but
the one other thing that I don't know if it'll get me to jump back in or not was the DLC, and I guess it's all DLC for Resident Evil Village that was shown by Capcom. So there's the third person mode, which I prefer. Now, Resident Evil Village is one of my favorite Resident Evil games. I love that game, and it never really bothered me that it was in first person. But then there's this expansion. I can't remember what they call it, but you play as a different character, I believe. I think you play as a woman. And nonetheless, any new content for that game, if if it gets released and people are like, well, if you like Resident Evil Village, you're gonna love this, I might jump back in because I loved Resident Evil Village. I thought it was way better than 7 was good, don't get me wrong, but I thought Village was way better, and really love what Capcom's doing with Resident Evil in general.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still an absolute Resident Evil newbie. I've never played a single one.
Do you like? Oh, so like that's your Halo. Like for me, I've only played one Halo. Like, do you like scary games or not?
Oh no, see, I don't do scary games.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, like, yeah, that's probably not a good idea.
It's except for Resident Evil 7. That's like that went full horror.
I was about to say, don't you dare say Resident Evil 7's the only one that's not.
No, Resident Evil 7's the one that went full on horror. It like there's not any of the campiness that I loved about the early games, and they brought that back for Resident Evil Village, which I love. So I would go with 2 remake or Village if you're gonna start. But yeah, it's gonna scare you at times, no doubt.
Yeah. But there is good stuff, I'm sure, happening at Tokyo Game Show. We're just not aware of it. If anybody else that's live watching this, let us know. Or if you're watching the replay, let us know. But, we probably have more to say about what? He's raising his finger. What?
I do have one more thing.
Yes.
On the JRPG front, Suikoden 1 and 2 remasters were announced. And that's cool. I played Suikoden 1 way back in the day. So if you're a JRPG fan and you like basically retro games, those are awesome. Just I'll leave it at that. That's a good one.
Cool. Okay. Hey Josh.
Yeah.
Do you think there was enough JRPGs and farming games shown in the Nintendo Direct?
I don't know. I mean, maybe that's why they're holding back on showing us more Breath of the Wild 2 or Tears of the Kingdom, because maybe it's got farming in it, and they're like, we got too much farming in this Direct, so we got to hold that back for the next Direct.
Maybe it's got farming. No, so I have an actual joke here because, like, people know obviously, it brought me to tears from the announcement of Pikmin 4, but I haven't heard anybody drop this joke as we're thinking of stuff. Hey. Pikmin 4 is Nintendo's greatest farming game they have ever made. Or Pikmin is their greatest farming game they've ever made. So,
Did you post a tweet about that by chance? Because I feel like I saw something.
But I wish I did because I thought of it like last night. I'm like, that's perfect for this direct.
I feel like I saw someone say, if you think about it, Pikmin is a farming game, which I wouldn't know because I haven't played Pikmin. But
yeah. But yeah, so we'll hit these in order with the the Nintendo Direct first, which, yes, after over 8 months, or around 8 months exactly, we finally had a Nintendo Direct this week. And I am sure, as Josh was kind of teasing at earlier, that gap for everybody might have put on expectations. And especially, it's what we do. When we get hungry for something, our mind starts to flutter and we start, like, oh, maybe they were holding on to this or whatever. And maybe that's what happened. But nonetheless, they finally did it. They stuck with their tradition of a September Direct happening. And I walked away pretty okay, believe it or not. Not flabbergasted. Yeah. I got one great thing, which everybody knows. But overall was all right. But first, Josh, how'd you walk away from that Direct first? Just kind of an overall before any highlights come up.
I walked away thinking that was a fantastic Direct for the people who are interested in, well, obviously farming games, but even just JRPGs. Yeah. And some of Nintendo's bigger franchises that aren't necessarily my favorite. I'm not a huge Fire Emblem guy. I got into Three Houses for about 15 hours, and it just, I appreciate it for what it was, but it didn't hold my interest. And then Bayonetta 3, not, I tried with Bayonetta 2, and it that's like one of the greatest action games ever made, and it just didn't hold my interest. So for me, I was kind of reminded of the way I tweeted about it is that I was reminded of why Nintendo's core offering is maybe no longer for me, really. You know, I love Mario, I love Zelda.
I did see that. Yeah.
As everybody else, I mean, who doesn't like those games? Maybe there are some people out there, but when you get outside of their really big heavy hitters, a lot of what Nintendo has it's not for me anymore. I am interested in Pikmin 4, though, and I even told you that after playing Tinykin, which takes a lot of influence from Pikmin, I saw Pikmin 3 Deluxe was on sale, so I picked that up, and I do plan on playing it.
Nice.
But yeah, so it was a.
Which,
I mean,
by
if you go
the way,
down
I'll
the,
let you know, you don't need to have played the previous games to play it. So,
which is awesome, yeah, because I have no way that I know of to play the original.
There'll be little nuggets, but it's not. Yeah.
But if you look at the overall slate, it was a great direct. Like, even if it's not for you, we got a new Fire Emblem game. We got Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC. That game just came out, so we're already getting DLC for that. We got Octopath Traveler 2 got announced.
Yeah.
Again, we got a Bayonetta 3 trailer. Pikmin 4. Golf is coming to Nintendo Switch Sports if you're into that. You know, there's a lot of stuff here.
And yeah, to me, so what I was telling people is, honestly, if they just trimmed out a little bit of the farming and JRPG stuff, if they just trimmed a bit of that out and had like one more first party Nintendo thing, and I think in the first half, because I think the first half is actually where it was really slow, and I think the second half was kind of picking up a decent amount. Then I think I would have put it in the good tier. But if I'm honest, I walked away just feeling like it was like top of the okay area. So a first question I got, the first thing I wanted to kind of bring up is how it ended, which is getting what is, in my opinion, and I'm very curious if I'm alone on this, the biggest blue ball of a trailer I think I have ever seen. And I say that because literally when I watched it with my chat, and I'm talking about the sequel to Breath of the Wild, it is not Breath of the Wild 2. We now know the name. It is Tears of the Kingdom, and it's coming out in May. And we got that information from this trailer, but what it did was show, and I counted, 23 seconds of gameplay.
It didn't feel like that to me. It felt like
it didn't. It didn't feel that short. But then when I counted it, I'm like, dude, this is so short. But
I thought it was shorter. I was like, man,
yeah.
Nothing.
But there is a lot of good stuff in it. Josh, I don't remember. Did you play Breath of the Wild? And if you did or didn't, how you feeling about this?
I love Breath of the Wild. I will say it's not like my favorite game of all time, but I started that game and put 60 hours into it over the course of like 6 days or something like that, or maybe 7 days. That sounds impossible, but I blew through that game and loved it. I like most people, I missed the dungeons, but I also loved what blows my mind about that is how systemic it is, like the physics systems that they have and how much it allows you to do, and that people are still like coming up with creative ways to play that game like 6 years later. It makes me want to jump in, and rarely do I replay a game before its sequel comes out, but I'm tempted to do that with Breath of the Wild because it was 6 years ago that I played it, loved it, spent like 7 days with it, and never touched it again. You know, so I should give it another shot.
You got a completely different experience out of that game than I did, because I milked that game dry. Like when I was done, I think it was at 350 hours, and I spread it out over the course of like a year and a half. So yeah, that game lasted a long time to me. And so when I hear somebody like, I'm going to replay it, like, I understand you explained how it worked for you. It was a different experience, but I just can't even imagine, like, oh, God, I can't do that.
Well, and I think I explored 80 out of however many, not dungeons, what are they called in Breath of the Wild? Shrines. I think I explored like 80, which I think there's 120 in the game, so there's like
something like that.
40 that I didn't even get to, and having spent only 60 hours, only 60 hours in that game. I know there's a ton of Hyrule that I never even saw. So it
Yes.
would probably be worth
There's
me
such
going back.
cool, like that's why I'm loving Elden Ring, because like if you just look in a space, you'll be shocked at what you find. Sometimes I was Breath of the Wild. Like there's literally some massive underground maze. Well, it's not underground. It's just like in this big crater that's kind of
Totally.
like, it's hard to see, but it's like, dude, what is that maze? And then you go into it and explore it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Hannah's,
That's why I was gonna say that's why I said that world would be fun to live in, because just like no matter where you go, there was always something cool to discover. And yeah, I may revisit Breath of the Wild before Tears of the Kingdom comes out. But yeah, I thought the trailer was cool. I did watch a couple of dissections, if you will, on YouTube of that trailer, and there is a lot in there.
yeah.
For those who want to go looking for it.
Yeah, and there's Hannah in the chat saying, I would have liked a little more from them at the end. I started to wonder if they needed to delay it again, but why would they announce the release date? Yeah, that's a good question. Are they delaying this game?
I think so. I mean,
so either.
I think again, as I said before, Nintendo, or maybe I didn't say it, Nintendo seems to be playing this one very close to the chest, and I think they're doing that very deliberately. I think that they waited a long time to give us a release date, even though it's, I think, the furthest release date we have for any game right now. I just don't think, and Zelda has a history of getting delayed past its release date, and I'm just hopeful that maybe they've learned from prior lessons. It's been 6 years, which is longer than I think we've ever waited for a Zelda game between mainline entries in the series. So no, I don't think they're going to delay it. That said, if they do, they still have till holiday to really. I'm sure that's when they really want to get the game out by holiday 2023.
Yeah.
But
no, they're. I'm in the firm opinion that they're not delaying this, and that's just because Nintendo. I think the thing that I like about Nintendo more than any other publisher out there, I feel very confident when they show a game. Like,
yeah,
they sit on their stuff for a long time, and sometimes it'll get leaked, but I'm just so impressed with how they keep a wrap on stuff, and I think that's what they're doing here. They have a date because they're confident in it, and they're just sitting on it, and it's a project they announced really early to get people hyped. Maybe it was too early, and that was also the year before COVID happened too, so maybe that was the other reason. So, but yeah, I don't think this is getting delayed, especially with them having a date so far out. And there was, and I'm personally not into the title Tears of the Kingdom, but I have ideas as to why that is, and it probably is going to make sense when we play it. But
it always sounds weird when, well, I shouldn't say always. I remember when I heard Breath of the Wild, I was like, Breath of the Wild? I'm never going to get used to saying that, and now I am.
Perfect sense, though.
Yeah, but it didn't sound like a Zelda game to me.
It did.
But
you're right there. I agree with you there.
And so I'm sure in 6 years, Tears of the Kingdom is going to roll right off the tongue.
Yeah. It sounds a lot more narrative, I think, than Breath of the Wild does. Yeah. Yeah, let's just talk about Pikmin 4. Get it out of the way. I mean, I don't know if I want to talk about it too much because I already have a whole video on this. But if people watch my channel, they know that this was the first game reveal in years that has actually got me to tear up, a grown-ass man, for a video game. It was silly, but if people follow me for a while, they know exactly why. That is something in every Nintendo Direct I have said I've always wanted. And again, I don't want to talk too much about it because I just defer you to the video I did. But nutshell, that is what made me totally fine coming out of this Direct. I'm like, I got Pikmin 4. That's what counts.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Like, a lot of people have been waiting for that game. It's
there's so many, dude. Yeah. I don't know. Like you said, you never played a Pikmin game, but I have. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No. You go ahead. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you.
No, I was just gonna say, for a nutshell, for people that haven't played a Pikmin game, it's just as Josh said. People have been waiting for this. The last one was in 2013, and then the one before that, I think, was like 2004 or 5. So these games have a tendency to have a big gap between them. And Miyamoto, I guess, soft confirmed it over interviews at E3, which is hilarious. But yeah, people have been waiting for this a long time. And I am hoping it's their spring game. Josh, do you think it'll be their spring game? Any other thoughts about Pikmin?
Well, I mean, technically, Breath of the Wild is slated for spring.
That's true.
But
true.
I think it, based on how little they showed, I kind of doubt it. I think, if anything, this might be their holiday game, because they really were just like, Pikmin 4 is a thing, and it's going to have a new camera angle, and here's a screenshot. So based off of that, plus they do have Fire Emblem coming out in January or February. So there is a gap between Fire Emblem and Tears of the Kingdom. So it could land between those two. I don't know if Pikmin is big enough to be their holiday game, but
that's what I was about to ask you, is if you think that would be big enough, but you just answered it. So
yeah, I don't think so, because I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but Pikmin 3 is more or less a strategy game of sorts, right? Even if it is kind of a unique one.
It's a very unique real-time strategy. Yeah,
and I don't know if that's big enough for a Nintendo holiday release, but it's like they're coming out with with Tears of the Kingdom in May. What else could Nintendo possibly have that is bigger than Pikmin 4 if we're going out to holiday?
What the hell is the Mario team up to? What the hell is the Mario team up to? That's my answer.
And in 2017, Nintendo did release a Zelda and a Mario game in the same year, so it has been done before. So
they did. And Nintendo's not shy about releasing stuff close, I think, either. They had a very packed summer, but I don't know. I do see in the chat, Nike's like, Keebs, what changes or new things would you like to see in Pikmin 4? And this is something that I guess only I can answer, since I only played it. But I was telling my good old buddy pal Titus that they talked about something called Dandori in it, where just they have a way that they want to help the multitasking and the strategy and stuff that you do. And I think that's the biggest thing that I'm curious about. Like, they'll add new enemies, but the progression was Pikmin 1, you just had Olimar, one guy commanding these guys. Pikmin 2, there was Olimar and Louis, which allowed you to be able to have two different people that you could bounce back and forth between, which helped a lot. Pikmin 3, they gave you 3 people, but also you could use a map to help kind of like send people to do tasks. So rather than just making it 3 people, they added that new feature to help kind of micromanage what's happening. 4, I want to see them do something like that feature. Like, they add something. It doesn't have to be a Switch gimmick, but like just some feature that helps you to multitask in that game, because that's what Pikmin's about. It's really about micromanaging so many different things that you're working on during one day, and you all have to get back to the ship. Otherwise, all your Pikmin are gonna die. So just a new way to help do multiple tasks easier is probably what I would look for.
Do you think Pikmin 3, I'm sure it does because they re-released it. I mean, I don't know how many improvements Deluxe had, but does Pikmin 3 hold up these days?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm a straight yes on that. And I say that because I just played it like a year and a half ago. I think at the start of COVID or right before COVID. But I played it and I was like, dude, this, for a Nintendo game, this looks great. You know, you're not going to compare it to PS4, Xbox One stuff, whatever. But for a Nintendo game, it's one of the best looking out there, kind of a thing.
And gameplay wise too, like that. I'm curious, does it feel?
It's super smooth. Nothing really bugs up. But there are some moments I could imagine, like, because again, you have to multitask a lot in the game, that you might be trying to call your boys back, but then they might not come because you just missed them, kind of a thing. And it's a game, gameplay wise, that is a little bit tricky, but once you get the hang of it, it might get better. But
yeah, I will say Pikmin 2 is a very like influential franchise. Like, so Tinykin I played, heavily influenced by that. Another game that's on my backlog, Kane and Bridge of Spirits.
Mm-hmm.
Like, also people say
Yep.
that there's a lot of Pikmin influence there. So that's another reason I want to experience Pikmin, is just to kind of educate myself on how these other games took their influence and became what they are. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So, and any other highlights from the direct? For me, like, I'll shout out one that I had, which was I don't remember. I always mess up the name of it. It's by the people that did Danganronpa or whatever. I forget the name of it, but
Yeah,
it's like,
Danganronpa. Yeah.
yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And it's their new game, and it looks like you're kind of like an investigator with a Shinigami or something. And I thought that looked kind of cool. I like games that you are investigating stuff just kind of narratively and having to figure something out. And I haven't played those games, but I've heard great things. And that one kind of stood out to me, but not too much else to say other than that. I don't know if you got one.
There are two more things. One is Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had gotten a better look at it than that prior to this direct. I have been kind of out of the loop on it, but me being a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, I never experienced Crisis Core. I actually own it. I have, like, funny enough, I have my PSP right here, and I own a copy of Crisis Core. So I could play the original, but I'm definitely going to wait for this. I hope it's great. It comes out on December 13th, so that's kind of right around the corner, actually. The other thing that on the negative side, so two games, Sifu and Tunic, are getting ported to Switch.
Yes.
Both of them had horrible frame rates in this direct, so I hope they fix that. But if not, it's a sign that, like, Nintendo, come on, we got to get some sort of hardware upgrade or new Switch at some point, please.
Yeah.
You know, if you're chugging on Sifu, which is, it's a modern game, but it's not the most graphically intense game out there, then I feel like that was just interesting. Stuck out to me.
Yeah, you could play the cloud version.
Yeah, or Resident Evil Village is coming to Switch.
I think that's why
too.
the cloud version exists, is because they just have a hard time running certain games. Yeah, so that's another conversation in itself. But yeah, and thank you. I see Steffi shout out. The game I was talking about was Raincoat. That's right, Raincoat. That was it. So,
okay.
But State of Play. We walked away from the Nintendo Direct feeling it was pretty, on paper, there was a lot of good stuff. Maybe could have been less farming, less RPG, maybe. I don't know. But State of Play, I walked away from that feeling really good. At least I did.
I did too, actually.
You did?
For a State of Play, not a PlayStation showcase, yes. I thought that they did a great job with this.
Yeah, because there's been kind of this, I want to say, stigma that's happened over the past couple of years that State of Plays are good, you know, like, hey, we get some good updates or whatever, but sometimes they're kind of meh. But their third-party one they did in June, and this one, I'm like,
yeah,
you're coming up on the up curve now. Way to go. Because
totally.
they sandwiched it with Tekken 8 and a great God of War trailer, and with some decent stuff in between that was engaging throughout. So
yeah.
I
thought
don't even know where to begin. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I think what was in between was awesome. I feel like a lot of people, surprisingly, when I hear, I've listened to a couple of recaps, and one of them almost completely overlooked Rise of the Ronin, which that's the new game coming from gosh, I always get, it's Team Ninja, not Ninja Theory.
Which
Ninja Theory's
two games, which is kind of
weird.
Yeah.
And they both look pretty ambitious. So I'm not sure, like, how they're managing that. But yeah, I thought Rise of the Ronin, even though we didn't see gameplay, it's coming out in 2024, so that's a ways out.
Yes.
But another action RPG, like I played the original Neo, I didn't play Neo 2, and I loved it. And so I'm totally down to see what they can do. I don't know if this is going to be a Souls-like or not, but I thought that was a highlight. Then what we kind of got a glimpse of, even though they revealed more later on at TGS, we actually overlooked this, but the Yakuza franchise is, like, going in all sorts of crazy directions.
Yes.
Like, at least for
yes.
I think I can't remember what the Yakuza game was called that they showed off at the State of Play, but it's where the main character is like a dragon, Ishin. That's what it's called. And chat, totally correct me if I'm wrong, because I have not played.
Was that the same game? Because I feel like they showed two Yakuza trailers. But they weren't
Well,
both named Yakuza. They were.
yeah, so I'm not probably going to get this straight, but I think that they revealed more. They revealed Like a Dragon 8, which is actually Yakuza 8. I think
Mm-hmm.
they announced that at TGS. Um,
Mm-hmm.
then there's Like a Dragon Ishin, which is a game that takes place in the past but features the same characters. Like they're just getting crazy with Yakuza, and I think Like a
Yes.
Dragon Ishin is actually a remake of a game that already existed. I could be wrong there.
That's right.
So
Yeah, it was a Yakuza game that was only in Japan, so they kind of remade
yeah,
it for the ground up to be released everywhere. That's right. I forgot
but
about that.
I need to give Yakuza and well now Like a Dragon a shot because I love
Yes.
how crazy this. They already were getting crazy with their base games. I know like the mini games and some of the side content in those games was just bonkers. And then with the turn-based combat that I saw from from Yakuza 7, and now what they're doing with they're just let's just rename the franchise Like a Dragon.
Yes.
You know, I just like the risks they're taking. It seems really cool, and I know the people who love Yakuza. They love Yakuza. You know,
They
so
love Yakuza. I have a couple people too. Yeah. I hear it's like, and it's not always super crazy. I think it's just like one of the best gaming soap operas you can play. That's what I hear.
yeah,
It's like one of the best gaming soap operas you could play. But Tekken 8, I don't have too much to say other than it is just visually stunning. Like,
yeah.
and I guess they're rebuilding it from the ground up on Unreal 5, which, that kind of would explain why. So, but
They said I think they said that trailer was all in
yeah,
like those were the models that you're going to be fighting with. At least that was
yep.
my understanding. I don't know how true that is because yeah, that trailer was gorgeous.
But to make it relatable for anybody, because again, I want to try to do that now and then for everybody. So you're not into Tekken, got it? Is it interesting to you to hear of the potential idea that there could be a year Tekken 8 and Street Fighter 6 happens in the same year? Like, I find that interesting. As somebody that's not into fighting games, I'm like, that's going to be pretty cool for fighting game peeps.
I mean, I think it's interesting because there was a whole I don't did Tekken cross Street Fighter or Street Fighter cross Tekken or X Tekken, whatever those games were. Did either of those ever happen?
I think because I think there was two of them. I think one of them did, one of them didn't.
Yeah,
The
I think you're
bigger
right.
one that they wanted didn't though, and that's why Smash fans ate super well because they got to see Kazuya
Yeah.
versus Ryu. So, yeah,
But anyway, now we're gonna kind of get to see those two go against each other. I mean, maybe
yeah,
maybe phrasing it that way is not a good idea. But anyway,
sure.
it's going to be interesting to see how I think Street Fighter 6 is more of a heavy hitter, pardon the pun, than Tekken 8, even though Tekken 8 is a big deal. But I'm excited to see how it plays out. I know the fighting game community is going stronger than ever right now, so it's exciting.
Yeah. And I see somebody in the chat bringing up that I might be coming through just one ear. Let me know if that is true because I think I know why, and I might be able to fix it. Let me say this before that. I just had a friend over last night that he is into fighting games, and he's kind of feeling Street Fighter 6 maybe more than Tekken, and he's a Tekken fan. So that's kind of interesting to hear. Josh, how was that God of War trailer?
Got me more excited for God of War than anything they've shown prior. So, God of War, just a little background. God of War 2018 is a game I unfortunately had to kind of rush through because I started it right before I had a big trip coming up, and I should have probably waited till after, but I started it and then I was like, oh, I got to finish this before I leave on this trip. So I kind of rushed through it, which I do regret doing because I feel like I sold that game short for how special it was. But because of that, I didn't enjoy it as much as I feel like I should have. And also, my hype for God of War Ragnarok is not as high as it is for a lot of people. But this trailer,
Yes.
whew, this trailer got me very excited. Like that part where they showed the wolves and the giant wolves, which I know are like mythical
Yes.
figures, and then Atreus. I think it was Atreus who shot the arrow up at the eclipse, and you saw that gorgeous shot of the sky kind of
So
tearing in half.
gorgeous. That
I
shot
got
was so awesome.
I got goosebumps, and while it didn't bring me to tears, if there was a moment in gaming recently that got me close, that was it. Just the sheer beauty of that shot, and I'm like,
Yeah.
yep, this game is going to be absolutely epic. I cannot wait for it, and I guess if I have a few things of God of War 18 that didn't totally do it for me. I thought that some of the RPG elements were a little clunky, and like the character customization, I guess, like a lot of menus, more menus than I would like for a God of War game anyways.
I would agree with you, actually. As somebody that just played the game, so fun fact, I just played the game like a month ago. I agree. Like, there's a lot of menus. I figured it out eventually, but boy, like, I was not expecting to have to deal with that. So
yeah. So I'll be interested to see if they refine that at all. I hope they keep the character customization because I like that, but I hope they make it a little more refined. But other than that, like, yeah, I couldn't be more excited for God of War Ragnarok. For me personally, it has potential to be my game of the year because I actually don't think Elden Ring is going to be my game of the year, but we'll see how God of War Ragnarok plays out. I'm sure the game is going to be a masterpiece.
Yeah, which I'm sure this will be another year where it's like Red Dead 1 and God of War were the shoe-ins for Game of the Year in 2018, and this year it's going to be like Elden Ring or probably Ragnarok. If Ragnarok's as good, if not better, than 2018's was.
Yeah.
Yeah, as so, like on the stream right now, the shot's about to play. Yeah, but I love that shot, dude. It's so good. But yeah, as somebody that just finished God of War, I loved this trailer. It might be, in terms of how a trailer was put together, maybe my favorite trailer of the year, and that's saying something. But because
I think it's one of the best trailers of all time. No joke.
It's great. It was a great way to, and dude, okay, speaking of the state of play, did you really think that they were going to end with that controller? Because I was scared that they were gonna.
I thought if they do, this is not going to go over well because honestly, I thought that controller it's really underwhelming to me. I'm like, I tweeted about it. I'm like, if you didn't know that the wolf was part of the game, you could make this controller black and red and it would look like a Ghost of Tsushima controller for all I know.
Yeah. I was scared that they were going to end on that, but then immediately they just played the trailer. The second that ends, I'm like, oh, thank God. And they edited it with the dope trailer. To me, as somebody that's really fresh in God of War, I watched the timeline videos, played the first game last month, enjoyed the heck out of it. I really did. And again, my buddy that was over last night, he watched the trailer and he was just like, dude, this is going to be crazy. Because story-wise, I think that's why this trailer really hit a lot of us, is they even titled this story trailer.
Yeah.
Every other look we've gotten, we gotten glimpses of things, but like this was the trailer to talk about literally just, he says it in it, and I won't give context, but there's potential bigger things of just, death can have me when it earns me, kind of a thing.
Yeah,
like,
that was the line everybody loves.
You badass Kratos, you freaking badass. But and the grapple hook thing, that was a really that was something that caught me off guard. Like, was that a grapple shot? But
yeah.
And then I see in the old games, I guess that was kind of a thing where you could kind of jimmy off of a ceiling or something like that. I don't know if you have experience with that, but
I mean, you could, from what I remember, you could climb on ceilings. I don't know if God of War 3. I've played 1 and 3.
Okay.
I missed 2.
Which I hear is like
I
the best
don't
one.
recall specifically a grapple hook, but I do know. Oh, and also in the PSP version, you could use your Chains of Olympus. I think, is that what they're called? Whatever they are. The hooks. Yes, you could use those to like kind of climb along a ceiling like this, and I think that was in God of War 3 too. Might have been in all of them. Anyways.
Yeah. But yeah, that trailer was sick. That was a great way to end it. Visually, this game's great, and it's sad to hear a lot of folks, like, even if it's on PS4, I hear a lot of folks saying, I have to wait till I get a PS5 though.
Yeah, I hope they'll, if they could make Horizon Forbidden West run on a base model PS4, I think they can do it with God of War. It may not.
They're gonna.
It won't
it's releasing for it.
Yeah. But I don't
They
think we're
want to
going to
experience
run
it like the best way is what they're getting at.
Yeah, and just because Sony's stuff is always so polished, I don't think there's a risk of running into any sort of cyberpunk situation where
No.
it won't flat out run on an old
It
machine.
it just will be, 1080 60 frame instead of 4K 60 kind of a thing. So
And I will say on the story end of things, I loved how they're making it's kind of I don't know if Kratos is going to bite, but I don't know if it's also Thor or the other god. What's the Odin, who was speaking, but whoever had the voiceover where he's saying like, you call I'm paraphrasing here, but like you call yourself a god, but has anyone ever prayed to you?
Right.
Has do you know that type of love? And they're making kind of Kratos look back at himself as this just like one-track minded killing machine, which I think it's kind of meta how that's how players have looked at Kratos in the past, and now they're getting Kratos to look at himself in that way.
Dude, it's great. Yep.
That's
totally
awesome.
Agreed.
I thought
that's what
smart.
I loved about 2018, man. I'm just like, dude, this is a very different, not only take on Kratos, but look at Kratos. Yeah, this is good.
So anyway, I thought that was really smart.
So we talked about TGS. We talked about the State of Play at Nintendo Direct, which are kind of our biggest topics. I'm hoping we could squeeze in 2 quick questions. And I know one of them will be bigger for you, and the other one will be kind of a quicker one. But Josh, I have 2 things out of our 3 topics I wanted to hit, but I'm going to condense them, okay? Because I want to see if we can breeze through them.
Cool. I'll try to be quick.
343 has a new head of leadership. And if you guys didn't know, Bonnie Ross was the head of 343, a.k.a. Microsoft's flagship title, Halo. They have a new head. Now, if you're not into Halo, don't worry, because I have a question here I'm very curious about everybody's take on. They have a new figurehead now instead of this one that was Bonnie Ross. She got split into 3 different portions. There's somebody that's in charge of kind of game development, the franchise, and business and operations. Good idea, in my opinion. With that in mind, we'll see where Halo goes. But my question is, the state that Halo Infinite is in, or any game, a live service game, if it's feeling like it's going slow and it's not moving along well, is that a problem with the people that are developing it or the people that are publishing it? AKA, is it the people that are creating the thing, or is it the people that are giving to the creators to make the thing? I thought that was essentially an interesting way of asking, is the state of Halo Infinite at this point, is it more the blame on 343 or is the blame more on Xbox? That's kind of a big question, but I was curious on your take and anybody else's in the chat. And I will give one pretext to this that is basically my opinion wrapped up. There was a statement of the creative director saying, unfortunately, we had to allocate resources and choose to put the resources we were going to do to make split screen not happen anymore.
Yeah.
And when you hear that from the flagship franchise of Xbox, I'm a little bit freaked out.
Yeah.
So I personally am on the side of Xbox. But what do you think?
Well, I think it's at some point it becomes one and the same, because at some point, if 343 is to blame, then Xbox is also to blame, because they're, if I look at it this way now, I from my understanding, Bonnie Ross was at 343 for 20 plus years. Is that right?
Yeah. No, 15. She was in the industry for 22, or something like that.
How long do you know how long she was the head of, like, she was in charge of Halo?
15,
basically
15 years.
Okay, so that's the majority of the time, as far as I know, that 343 has had Halo, right? Like, and over that period of time, Halo, from an outsider's perspective who pays very close attention to video game news, they haven't reached the heights that Bungie did, not once. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
I'd say so.
Okay, so, and I'm not saying they have to put out the same games that Bungie did or copy them, but the hope is that they get the Halo community as excited today as they were back then, and as well as bringing in new players. And if they can't do that over 15 years, you kind of have to look at what's the common denominator. Now, I do not know what Bonnie Ross's input was on these games, but yeah, you just kind of have to look at the common denominator and be like, okay, what can we change, if not completely just give Halo to a new studio, which I don't think they should do that, because Halo Infinite is you got to keep, like, Halo Infinite is, that's the Microsoft or Xbox kind of bet on Halo Infinite, and I think they should continue to do that. Try and turn it into something that is going to do what I just said: make Halo fans, longtime Halo fans, excited, and bring in new players if they can, like me. And
yeah,
so I think that Xbox is, if 343 is not going to shake things up because something needs to change, in my opinion, then Xbox needs to do it.
Yeah.
And that, now I don't
which
think
is
Bonnie
where
Ross
I'm at too. I think, yeah,
I don't think Bonnie Ross was fired. I saw some people speculating that maybe she was, but no, I take her at what she said, that she had some family illness to pay attention to, and I wish her all the best, obviously, on that front. I hope things resolve, but that's kind of my take. I think that this change, some change like this, needs to happen for Halo.
Yeah. And this is definitely a shakeup, and we won't see the immediate effects of it. But I just thought it was kind of an interesting perspective to, like, if you're not into Halo, even if it was like, say, if God of War Ragnarok for whatever reason kind of was going questionable, or maybe it's fantastic. Do you think you think with PlayStation kind of backing him, PlayStation Studios, I feel like part of the blame really has to go there too, because they're helping to make this happen for the devs. So I thought that was kind of an interesting take to see if what you thought and other folks. I'm definitely on the side that I'm like, Xbox needs to pay attention to their flagship more, because it is literally the face of your company. And if the face of your company is really questionable, people are going to potentially doubt your situation. So yeah. The other thing that I wanted to get is the one that you probably care more about. I'm just going to phrase this simply. Mom and dad are fighting right now, ladies and gentlemen, in the gaming industry. In the most public, mom and dad are getting a divorce situation we have ever seen, in my opinion. Feel free to correct me. But basically, we all know Activision and Blizz are getting bought by Xbox. You might not care about that deal. What you should care about, or might be interesting, though, is seeing the most public back and forth I feel we have ever seen from, like, heads of publishers. So, Josh, this was something that you were really interested to give a take on, and I'm not sure what to segue it to, but just how does it feel to see Jim Ryan and Phil Spencer just kind of be in public? And maybe if you have feelings on it, I'll give a little thing,
I do.
Yeah. Oh, I do. He says.
Yeah. So as a PlayStation,
which, by the way, this is going to transition maybe perfectly to we have a message from Steffi that is kind of a good segue from this, and then we're going to play 20 questions, but go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So, I've been a PlayStation gamer since the PlayStation 1 launched back in 94, 95, whenever that was. I love PlayStation, and lately it's been just a constant stream of disappointments coming out of Jim Ryan's mouth. Jim Ryan is a doofus. That's my take in 3 words or 4 words. It's like,
oh no,
bro, Microsoft is doing business business, and that's what Microsoft and Xbox are doing. And
business
deal with it, dude. Stop complaining. So basically, I'm sure everybody knows, but Jim Ryan is basically saying,
the head of
this
PlayStation.
Call of Duty, the head of PlayStation is saying that the deal that Microsoft gave PlayStation on a silver platter, here's 3 years where we're guaranteeing that Call of Duty will stay on PlayStation. We might even go beyond that, but we're just not willing to sign a perpetual contract.
We might go beyond it. Yeah.
Yeah. Xbox did not need to do that, and they're probably only doing it so this deal goes through the regulators, as quickly as possible. That's what businesses are going to do. And then Jim Ryan comes out and says, by the way, stop me if I get too long on this, but clearly I have.
Okay, I will. Thank you. Yep.
But Jim Ryan comes out and says, that's inadequate, and it's going to affect something to, I won't put it in quotes, but something along the lines of that's going to affect gamers' decisions when they buy a console. Pardon my French, no shit. Like, that's what Microsoft and Xbox are trying to do. And that's also what PlayStation does when you sign exclusivity deals for Spider-Man and Avengers, or you get Final Fantasy VII Remake to be exclusive to PlayStation for a year. You were trying to
jump into that bullshit. Like, you can't make Final Fantasy exclusive as long as you have not giving any windows and then be complaining about this. That's absolute bullshit. Yeah.
So completely hypocritical on Jim Ryan's, and it's like he's talking like a dude who doesn't understand what businesses are supposed to do, but clearly he does, because he got the job that he has, and I think he's made some good decisions financially for PlayStation.
Yeah.
But as far as it just comes off as arrogant, and this idea that this 3-year deal was inadequate on many levels. Like, give me a break, dude. And I saw someone on Twitter, I can't take credit for this, but someone on Twitter just said, stop complaining and give your fan base and your customers a deal they can't refuse, which is what Xbox is doing with Game Pass. So shut up and put up, basically. Give your audience what they deserve, which is an offer as maybe you can't match what Game Pass is doing, but come up with something.
Yeah, and I'm going to interrupt you because something I think, and I did a video about, because he made a statement where, or it wasn't him actually, it was Sony, and they were saying how they are worried about how this will affect the quality of games, and I think they're basically, if it's Jim Ryan or anybody, they ain't gonna go down without a fight on this, which is so interesting that we, the public, get to see it. That's the only thing about this. Like, if you're not into game news, that's fine, but just know the biggest public CEO fight we have seen is happening, and I can understand. Like, my short take is just I can understand the fear that is, even if this didn't become exclusive to Xbox or whatever, and we still get it after that 3-year deal, I have a feeling they're also terrified about, what this will make Game Pass become. And they're really afraid to compete with that. Like, because they have a business model, their business model works, and Call of Duty is a big thing that's going to shift people to Game Pass, and they're going to have to compete with it. And that's going to, I think that they're very scared about how that'll shift the market in general, which I personally think that's a fair fear. But man, they are kicking and screaming on this, and I think they're just willing to take the bad PR. They're willing to take the bad PR if they can get the Sonic movie model remade, if they can get something delayed, if we have seen this before, public outcries. When you get people involved, sometimes change happens. That's probably what they're trying to do here. So it's quite crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, it's and the other thing is, like, this is why innovation or whatever, is good. This is why the console wars are actually good with Sony and Microsoft, and even Nintendo to an extent, coming up with ways to innovate. Like, so when Microsoft comes out with something that shakes up the industry, like Game Pass, Sony has to respond. And it might take some time, but in 2 or 3 years, what is Sony going to do? We're all going to find out, and hopefully it's good for gamers.
Okay, so we'll move on from that. That is sort of topics from the week, folks. I usually want this segment to be around like 30, 45 minutes, but this was kind of a big week with Nintendo Direct, State of Play, Public, Mom and Dad, and TGS. So this was kind of hard to keep under that time. But really quick, I just do want to shout out 2 quick things that, again, patrons sent these in. They sent in introduction topics for us and potentially last things that are kind of less timely. I did say before Steffi had a good one regarding somewhat exclusivity, but I'm going to rephrase a question that Capone sent in, which is, so in that Nintendo Direct, they showed Tales of Symphonia is getting a 4th port. It makes me curious. How many ports is too many, and how much of an upgrade should they have from the last port, or is no upgrade needed? It's That's kind of an interesting question of how many times should something get ported and does it need to be upgraded every time? My opinion is yes, if you're going to port it, you have to make sure at least the resolution has jumped up or something. Do you need new game content? No, but I don't mind a port happening, but it doesn't excite me if I've already played the game. That's my short answer. Josh, if you have a short take on this.
Yeah, I think if they're trying to get new people to play the game, or if they're trying to get people who already played it to play it on a new platform, then yeah, like throw in some sort of incentive for the player. Whether it's a simple, like you said, up-res or something to make the game look or play better. But I actually don't have any problem with like just putting a game on as many platforms as possible because they're, Tales of Symphonia at this point now it's an old ass game. So if there are people, I guess my question is that game playable on Switch?
Yeah.
Is it playable on Switch prior to this in any way, shape, or fashion?
Well, that's the only thing about the Switch is that there's no like backwards compatibility. You just have to have the cartridge and
So in this case, I don't think there is a number of ports that is too many. It's just like make the game playable for as many people as possible. Like that's great. But yeah, it's nice to have the bells and whistles of like have the resolution be better, the frame rate be better. If there was anything about the old game that by today's standards is so GoldenEye is another great example.
Yeah.
If they were to release that with the old control scheme, that would be unacceptable because that game is basically unplayable. But if they're going to update it to be dual analog, then that's you got to do stuff like that.
Think of that. We were using the 64 controller with that. Yeah. We didn't talk about that, but yeah, GoldenEye on Game Pass and Switch Online. There you go.
Yeah. But anyways, to answer the question, I don't think too many ports is a thing. If just make a game as playable for as many people as possible, and if you can put in the time and the money to make the game better, by all means,
Sure, yeah. And the other thing, so Steffi, this is probably a good one. Steffi said, Hogwarts Legacy was announced as a PlayStation. Oh wait, sorry. Let me say this again. Hogwarts Legacy announced a PlayStation exclusive quest. In my opinion, some exclusive content is acceptable, but exclusive quests and stories of a considerable size are a bit unreasonable for me. Where do you draw the line of exclusivity? And I don't want to make this a full-blown conversation about like exclusives, but I'm saying like purely in terms of like extra content exclusives. Where do you draw the line with that, Josh? I'll let you go first on this, but yeah, just kind of like a minute take here, minute and a half.
It's not something that has ever influenced my decision to buy a game on one platform or another. I will say if I was a diehard Harry Potter fan and I was planning on playing this game on Xbox, I would be bummed. And that does kind of suck. So yeah, I guess I'm not a huge fan of it for that reason. But in the case of Harry Potter, which I do plan on playing because I think it looks awesome, I would draw the line as if it affects the core game, then no bueno, not good. If it is completely optional and I can play the game completely without that optional quest and really not know that I missed any content, that's I guess that's okay. But I'm just not a big fan of this exclusive content on certain platforms. Makes it feel it reminds me of the old days when like a game would come out on Genesis and Super Nintendo and one was like clearly better than the other. And if you had the one that sucked, you're like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah. To me, and it's the Marvel's Avengers situation, where like, you could get on both, but in this one, you get Spider-Man 3 years later. Yeah. Like I get it on a business practice. I get it. It's as you said, it's how you're going to convince somebody to get it on your marketplace by having that. I think if I had a preference with that, I never think anything gameplay related should ever be locked to a platform because that can change what you do in the game. That could actually change. You don't get to play as Spider-Man. You don't get to experience that part of the story because you chose to get it on this other system. And that's a bummer. That's a big bummer. But if it's something, this is what I don't mind and I think is kind of cool. If it's like an outfit, get this exclusive obvious Easter egg to Kratos' weapon or whatever. Or, hey, if you go over here, you know what my favorite example of this is? This is my favorite example of what's exclusive to this system. Soul Calibur. Do you remember back in the day? You remember what I'm talking about? There was like
Soul Calibur 2.
Yeah, Soul Calibur 2. You had like Link on Nintendo. I think it was Spawn on Xbox. And
Spawn on Xbox and
Darth
the
Vader?
Tekken character from
Yes.
From Tekken.
Yeah, that is
don't know
my
which one, but-
absolute favorite example, though, because it's like you are playing somebody
Totally.
that like, but all three of them have their own thing. So that's how you can make your choice. Which one of these three resonates with you best, but you're still getting an extra character on all these. So
Yeah, and I don't feel like anybody felt shortchanged in that. You know,
No.
like, I think Link was the hands down favorite, but like Spawn, dude, back in the day anyway, Spawn was dope. Like that was a great one.
yeah. And they're all gameplay elements, but like at least, you know, there's one on each kind of a thing. So you just make a choice between those three. But if there's just one that had Link and then the other one didn't have Link, that's dumb. I hate that. So
Yeah.
so that's the take on that.
But
All
I do
right.
think that game looks great.
I do too. Oh yeah, we didn't mention that, but I was kind of surprised to see that in the state of play.
Yeah.
Okay, my last thing before we get to 20 questions. So we're gonna have a fun game of 20 questions here. Again, Steffi's kind of our MVP. She submitted a lot of stuff. Am I alone in saying every time I see Hogwarts Legacy with the new trailer, it feels different every time?
Yeah. Like I don't know how much of that game is going to be just living in Hogwarts because you have
Yeah.
that part of it, and then you have these parts where you're exploring. You're not going to classes and doing that stuff. You're like exploring the school, and then apparently there's a lot of stuff outside in the surrounding area. So
Yeah.
it seems like there's 3 different parts of that game, and they all look
20?
very,
I
very
don't
different.
know. Like,
Yeah,
it's-
and there's combat. Like the combat
Yeah.
actually looks cool too.
Dude, I'm hoping, because every time they show this game, I'm just like, this is a part of that? This is Hogwarts Legacy? Kind of a thing. So we'll see. But folks, we're gonna play around. And actually, before I do this, because again, it's the first episode, so I kind of want to give context to things. I don't want this just to be a news show. I want to be able to talk about things that, you know, like Capone and Steffi sent in, or you, the chat, maybe if we don't have any send-ins, or, you know, when it picks up, we'll find ways of going about that. This is a big week, so I apologize. The chat hasn't been as noticeable. I did see Noah and Hyrule have joined, Hum Solo Gaming. Like, I appreciate you guys being here. It's just a big week, so we're kind of already over our time today. But I always want to end these with a friendly, good game, because I want to encourage that competition's fine. Competition is how we grow. And playing games is like, we can grow in the game, and it doesn't have to be, if you lose, you throw a fit kind of a thing. So at the end of these, I always want to have a little good game to play, which a lot of it is just going to be guessing what the game is. It could be music, it could be trivia, or it could be what we're going to do today, which is a round of 20 questions where Josh is going to try to figure out what game somebody sent in. And I'm curious about this one because, well, I'm going to put on a start screen and we're going to get started. So 1, 2, 3.
That I need to be aware of here. Like
Yes.
I know on the IGN version, they don't ask about the title specifically. Like, does this game start like with? Does this game have
I
redemption
think
in
you
the
could do
title?
that.
Like,
You could say, like, does it start with an S? You just can't say, is this Uncharted 4 kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Well,
I
if
might-
you have
I might
this fair
refrain-
question, maybe so, but
yeah, I might refrain from doing that unless it gets dire. And then the
Yeah.
other thing is, what is my interaction limited to with the chat? Like, can we take hints, or is there anything
if the
going on
chat
there?
was super active, I was going to have the idea of 10 questions where they are spamming questions that you might be able to, like, that I'm looking at that could help you a lot. Or there's a 20 question version where you're just trying to figure it out on your own. An honor system, you're not looking at the chat.
Yeah, I will not look at the chat. Let's do.
Okay,
I
20
like,
question version. Okay.
Yeah. Doing it
But
legit.
chat, feel free to try to guess it as you go. But in the future, what I would like to do is if the chat's like buzzing fast enough and they're spamming him questions, there'll be a 10-question version where I'll pick the most useful question for the guest. But for now, Josh is going to play, and let's see if he gets it. Okay. So, Josh.
Yeah, and I feel I just feel like not looking at the chat. I feel like we'll make for a more fun game because the chat can like literally be like shouting at me, and I won't be. I'm sure like I'm gonna be like not getting some obvious game, and they're gonna be like, "This is gonna be a Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, you dumbass."
That game was good, but so the one context I'm gonna give you with this is that if I'm kind of having a hard time answering these questions, it's because I won't be the most knowledgeable person of this game, but I think I can answer enough. So that's all I'm going to say. So sometimes you might get a little freebie of something. So without further ado, begin.
Okay. Did this game come out after 2010?
No. That's one. And somebody in the chat type out what he's asking.
Did it come out after 2000?
Where's my phone? Well, other page. I just want to fact check this, but I'm pretty sure. After 2000, yes.
Okay, so it's between 2010 and 2000. That's it. Is it a platform exclusive game?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, this is nerve-wracking.
This is one of those questions that I might maybe
I could rephrase it. Was it a platform exclusive game when it released?
Yeah, there you go. And also, if Steffi's in the chat, feel free to... Okay, when it was released, yes. When it was released, yes. This was a platform exclusive game.
Okay. Did it... Is it a Nintendo exclusive? Or was it a Nintendo exclusive at release?
No. This was not a Nintendo exclusive.
Was it a PlayStation exclusive?
Yes.
Okay. PlayStation exclusive between 2000 and... Man, that's like my... That's the period of time that I played the least games.
That's 4? Yeah, I believe that's 4.
I literally like stopped playing games between like 2004, 2003-ish, and then I picked them back up at around 2010, 2011. So... Okay, so you didn't know right off the bat if it was exclusive, so it probably isn't like a Naughty Dog. It's probably not necessarily a first-party game. Was this game developed in Japan?
No. That's 5.
Dang, okay, Sony platform exclusive that's probably on other platforms nowadays. Is this game currently playable on the Nintendo Switch?
That's a good question. Let me fact check. Again, I believe I know the answer, but let me make sure.
Also, keep in mind, like when they do this on IGN's Game Scoop, it's usually 3 people.
I know. I was about to throw that at you. Like, this is hard to do on your own. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I am currently not seeing it. Oop. 1 second. Oh. Yep. This game is playable on the Nintendo Switch. Yes.
Okay. Did it release? That's PlayStation 3 and.
That's 6. Yep.
Did it release on the PlayStation 2?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So it's not a PlayStation 3 exclusive. It's a PlayStation 2. Gosh. Man, PlayStation 2 is not my...
On the most sold console ever.
Is it a... It could be a Grand Theft Auto game. Those were exclusive to PlayStation 2 for a long time. Speaking of, we didn't touch on this, but dude, GTA 6 leaks.
Oh, I forgot that was in the docket. Shit. Yeah, I don't want to break your train of thought, but yeah, GTA 6 might have leaked this morning, ladies and gentlemen. It looks like it did.
Okay, so GTA is a non-first party platform exclusive to PlayStation. What else was? Final Fantasy games were, but those were developed in Japan. I think most Square games were. All right, screw it. Is this a Rockstar developed game?
Yes.
Ooh. Score.
God damn, freaking you and the Gaming Duo podcast. You guys throw out these Hail Marys, and you're so lucky when you do. Oh,
I'm
my
very
God.
lucky because I'm telling you, PlayStation 2, again, not my most knowledgeable.
You're so lucky. That's such bullshit.
How can I narrow this down without asking about the title of the game? Is this a is this a numbered entry in the franchise?
No.
Okay. Does it take place in a so it's got to be either Vice City or San Andreas? I would think.
You're allowed to fact check, by the way. Yeah.
I can fact check?
If you want. I just hate it when people are like, we do a movie version of this, and they're like, okay, it's an 80s movie, and then they just look at a list of 80s movies, like, no.
Oh,
if you're just wanting to clarify something. But
no, I'm just making sure. I think the only 3 games that came out for PlayStation 2 were 3, San Andreas, and Vice City, so we'll just try and narrow it down. Did it take place in a fictional version of Miami?
Again, I believe I know the answer. I just want to be sure. Yes, this setting takes place in a fictional version of Miami.
Okay. Is it Grand Theft Auto Vice City for the PlayStation 2?
You're going with it, huh?
I don't know how. I mean, honestly, I don't think there's another. There was like a side. There was like a spin-off to Grand Theft Auto, but that was on the PlayStation Portable, which I guess I did ask if it was the PlayStation 2.
You did ask if it was PlayStation 2.
I don't think there was another Grand Theft Auto game that I'm just completely overlooking. There wasn't a Vice City 2 or anything like that, so it's got to be Vice City. Is it Grand Theft Auto Vice City?
You got it.
Boom!
Good job.
Oh, well, thank you.
You're so lucky with the Rockstar.
Well, I'm just glad they picked a PlayStation 2 game that I I mean, there's like the big stuff that like Naughty Dog made, and there's the Final Fantasy games, but PlayStation 2 is just not my area of expertise, so
I can't
feel like I got lucky.
That's why. So I've never played the game. Like I haven't played any Grand Theft Auto game for the PS2. So when she sent that in, I was like, ooh, I'm gonna have to fact check some stuff this morning. So I looked at like a video about Vice City, and then have a Wikipedia open. Yeah.
Yeah, and I played Vice City recently on the recent collection that they released, and I was not impressed.
Yeah,
I don't think those games have aged as well.
And that's why when you said is it playable on Nintendo Switch, I immediately was like, I don't think so. But then I looked it up, and then I forgot that collection came out, and that collection is runnable on the Switch. So I'm like, yeah, it's on the Switch technically. So yeah, good freaking job, dude. I see Steffi in the chat. How have I haven't played it. I just haven't played PS2 GTA. My first GTA game was GTA 4. So, yeah.
I will say GTA 3, when it came out, blew my mind.
Monumental.
That was the first open world game I had ever played. And it might have been, it's kind of like the Super Mario 64 of open world games. It was the first one to do it. And man, what an experience at the time.
Yeah. And see, that's a part of this show, folks. We talk about the present, we talk about the potential future, and we talk about the past. That's what the friendly game is potentially part of. I thought it'd be interesting one day, though, to make like all right. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to keep that a surprise. So we'll find out later.
Will you ever do the 20 questions? Like,
we'll talk about that, but I wanted to see if there was a way maybe we could do that too. That'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or us together. If there's a third person, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's the third person, it'd be a lot of fun, but that is nerve wracking. It's not as easy as it looks, even though I
hard.
got it.
You're so lucky. I can't believe.
I knew if you had said, no, it's not a Rockstar game, I was screwed. I was like, I don't know where to go with this.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, I don't want to like drag this out, but
sure.
Man, those GTA 6 leaks, I don't know if you've looked at them. Even though it's in early development, you can tell that game looks good. If those are legit leaks,
good.
If those leaks are the real deal, that game looks real good.
I looked at it a bit. We didn't talk about this, chat, but I did have it on the docket. GTA 6, I guess, potentially leaked this morning and it's spread across the internet, so Rockstar's probably in a frenzy. I only looked at a little bit, and I don't know if I want to see too much because I'm one of those guys that like I want to keep leaks away because I want to see when they present it, kind of a thing. But
yeah,
I did look at a little bit. I couldn't help myself. Okay, folks, this has been Josh, aka I have him full screen on the screen. If you want to know more about Josh, in fact, I'll put it in the chat. You just put in !guest, and then you can find all of his social medias there or in the description, where you could also become a patron and support the show and join our game nights and our Discord and our podcasts and a bunch of other stuff. Makes it possible. This has been the first episode of Codename Goodgame, and I definitely think it went on too long, but I appreciate you guys tuning in.
It might be my fault. I can get kind of verbose at times.
No, I knew. I was like, do I bring up the Activision? I'll just do it. But Josh, thank you so much for being a part of this. And
dude, thank you for having me, man. Like, first guest on the show. I look forward to many more.
Yes, many, many more. Until then, chat, we will see you later. Don't forget to be geek proud, awesome. And we have to start saying this now. To have a friendly, good game. See you later.
Good game.
Good game.